Hey, what up? This is Josh Rubin from East West Healing and Performance. Have you ever wondered what is causing your muscle cramps? Well, stay tuned because I'm going to explain to you exactly what is causing muscle cramps and some simple things you can do to relieve them. Alright, so I just got back from the gym and I was talking with a friend because she was complaining that she gets muscle cramps, especially in her calves, almost after every workout. Well, of course, the main thing that people say is minerals, 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 mineral depletion, and you gotta, eat bananas or drink coconut water or add more salt, Celtic sea salt or something like that into your diet. Now, of course, I agree with that to some extent, but we always have to peel the layers back. And I believe that we're not peeling the layers back enough. And with everything that we do, it always comes back to blood sugar regulation, energy production, and thyroid hormone production, which stimulates energy production. Now, of course, we believe, yes, it does come down to minerals, of course. And people recommend, drink more coconut water. We did a YouTube on that. That's very beneficial because, of course, there's a lot of potassium. And potassium is very important because it actually helps to keep sodium in circulation. And it is important because it actually helps to get sugar into the cell. It kind of piggybacks sugar into the cell. So it's very important for those reasons. Of course, salt, putting salt in your food or a little bit in your water throughout the day is very important because salt actually can suppress the hippocampus from releasing stress hormones, and it's actually important for cellular respiration or energy production, which is ATP water, or what we call energy. Now, if we actually peel the layers back, and we look at what we call a hypometabolic person. I don't really like using the word hypothyroid. You can use it, but we're not doctors, so we like to use the word hypometabolic. Someone with a slow metabolism. Someone that's not actually producing energy at the cell level, which we've taught, you can actually see this with body temperature and pulse. If you're not producing enough energy, your body temperature is actually below 97.8 and your pulse is going to be low. It's that simple. Well, it's a little bit more complex, but for the purpose of this video, that's the simplicity of it. Of course, we talk about this more when we work with people one-on-one, as well as in our online programs that you can actually see below. But that's not the point of this video. If we actually peel the layers back, hypometabolic people compensate, number one, with adrenaline, because they don't have enough energy, and the body says, well, I need more energy, and that's one way of getting more energy, which, of course, can lead to a slow heart rate over time and an increased heart rate over time, more chronic. But at the same time, they actually lose sodium at a fast rate. And to compensate for this, these people actually release more aldosterone. The problem with aldosterone, well, aldosterone actually regulates water and sodium metabolism. The problem with aldosterone, this is where everyone says, minerals, 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 is that aldosterone tries to keep water and sodium in the body. It tries to keep it in circulation, but at the expense of losing magnesium and potassium. The problem is this. Sodium can actually downregulate adrenaline. You're going to have to connect the dots here. So hypometabolic people are actually losing sodium at a fast rate. They release aldosterone to compensate for this. The problem is they lose magnesium and potassium. And as I mentioned, potassium is important because it piggybacks sugar into the cell to regulate blood sugar and keep sodium in circulation. And rewind it a bit. Earlier when I said sodium suppresses the hippocampus and prevents it from stimulating the release of stress hormones and is important for cellular respiration. I correct myself. I'm actually talking about magnesium. That's what magnesium does. So we're losing these things at the expense of trying to keep sodium in circulation. We're losing two things that are very important for blood sugar regulation and cellular respiration. Now, if we're not regulating our blood sugar, of course, we call this hypoglycemia. That's the simplicity way of saying it. People that have anxiety, hot sweats, energy drops, they don't sleep well. They wake up in the middle of the night. They have difficulty falling asleep. They don't get their cycle. They have a rapid heart rate, etc., etc. Hypoglycemia actually increases the capillary stiffness in the body, which depletes glucose as it actually passes through it. Now, all your cells need glucose for energy production, but your red blood cells actually require more glucose for ATP production. But it can get depleted as it passes through these narrow capillaries that are more narrow and stiff, which depletes the glucose as it passes through them because of one being in a hypoglycemic state. Now, as this is going on, your red blood cells actually become more rigid when ATP or energy production is actually reduced, causing muscle cramps. Red blood cells are everywhere. So it's actually the hypoglycemia that's causing the capillary stiffness, that's depleting glucose production or glucose to the red blood cells. The red blood cells actually become more rigid, which decreases energy production. That's the science of it, right? The simplicity of it is hypoglycemia decreases the body's overall energy production and how it can use glucose efficiently to produce this, and depletes the amount of glucose going to your cells or red blood cells, which leads to muscle cramps. Now, what are some things you can do? Of course, as I mentioned, you can, eat more bananas, of course, always with a protein. You can add coconut water into your diet because of the potassium. Of course, potatoes, always with a protein. Potatoes actually have more potassium in than bananas. I don't recommend using magnesium supplement if you use a lot of different shellfish and whitefish and bone broth and things like that, and a lot of different tropical fruits, along with proteins and liver. You're going to get a lot of the minerals you need. But the most important thing you can do, and peel the layer back one more time, is regulate your blood sugar with metabolic foods, right? Non-inflammatory proteins, fruits and roots and things like that, but working on food frequency. We actually did a video on this. Food frequency is king. If you're eating 3 times a day, you're not regulating your blood sugar, you're going to cause everything that just happened, this red blood cell stiffness, lack of energy production, decreased glucose to these cells, etc., etc. So you have to figure this out for you based on food logging, body temperature and pulse, your ratios and things like that. But eating every 2 to 3 hours is the best way to regulate your blood sugar, put enough kindling on the fire to keep that fire going, which is energy production, to decrease your muscle cramps. And what's the most interesting thing about this? When do people get muscle cramps? Most of the time after expending energy. And they get the cramps because they're not taking in enough energy, which is hypoglycemia. Thanks for tuning in. I'm out of here.